Multifamily housing in Las Vegas. It's a relatively smaller segment of the residential real estate market, but it's an important segment. It may be of increasing significance. With housing prices rising for single-family homes, median in March 2022 of $460,000, multifamily residential units represent great value. They are less expensive to get into. They also may be more exciting places to live, more dynamic places to live, because you have neighbors around you. For some people, that's fantastic. For other people, the cost savings is fantastic. And let me actually suggest, if you really want to buy a single-family home, but can't afford it right now, it may make sense to buy a multifamily housing product to start gaining some of that equity to allow you to move up later, so you're not left behind in this market. Well, obviously that supposes that this market's doing really well. Let's take a look. I'm Justin Miller with the Chung Miller Group, and this is the residential real estate market update for the Las Vegas Valley for condos and townhomes, specifically resale condos and townhomes. And I look at each of those two different portions of the multifamily housing market separately, because condos and townhomes are legitimately separate populations in a larger data set of housing units. And by combining them, we omit and we miss a lot of significant issues. So I dissect them, I look at condos, and I look at townhomes, and I look at them as individual products, different products. All right, so let's dive right in. This is the March 2022 market update for condos and townhomes. Pricing for condos. This is not list price, this is actually sold price. For the median condo that sold in Las Vegas in March of 2022, the price was $230,000. So that's the very middle of the market. Half transacted for more, half transacted for less. So if you will, the middle of the market is going to look like the middle condo in terms of age, in terms of size, in terms of level of upkeep, in terms of the neighborhood that it's in terms of the larger community within which that neighborhood exists. The middle condo, $230,000. Well, that's nice, but how's it compare to anything else? Well, it's up 2.2% from the median condo at the end of February of 2022, which was $225,000. It's actually the third record high price, third month, so it's a third record high price of 2022, right? And it's we had records almost every single month last year as well. But for 2022, third record of the year. It is up from $165,000 or 39.4% from 1 year ago, from the end of March of 2021. Now, that's an interesting number. It's up $65,000 in 1 year. The median, right? That middle condo, $65,000 in 1 year. Median salary in Las Vegas. So the middle job, half of jobs pay more, half of jobs pay less. The middle job, the median income in Las Vegas, $46,000 per year. So if you're thinking about buying a property and you really want to buy a property and you don't own one, you've maybe never owned one, it's a first-time purchase, you really want a single-family house, but you can't afford to get into that. I understand that. That's not a problem. And you decide to wait and wait because you've heard from some people on YouTube or you've read things that housing prices can't keep going up. In fact, they're going to turn around and go down. Doom and gloom, the crash is coming, etc., etc. You're missing out. Those people are not telling you the right information. In fact, You made $46,000 this past year income because you were the median wage earner in Las Vegas, but you missed out on $65,000 of capital appreciation on a condo because you decided not to get into a condo while you wanted to wait for a single family home. That's a really big financial error. Please, you're hurting yourself if you're listening to people who tell you that the market's going down and you're relying on that. The market is not going down. And as we look through the rest of the data for March of 2021, we'll talk about some of the reasons why the market is not going down. We're on a sustainable uptrend in pricing. Will housing prices go down at some point in time in the future? Yeah, I'm sure at some point in time in the future they will. And there may be minor fluctuations in price month to month that occasionally pull something down $1,000 or $2,000. 3 months into 2022, 3 record prices and up $65,000 year over year. Not getting into this market is super costly. And I'm not saying get in because the train's leaving the station and you'll miss out. I'm saying residential real estate is actually a fantastic investment in your future. And if you're not investing in residential real estate by buying your primary residence and maybe by buying other properties, perhaps, you're not just leaving money on the table, you're moving yourself down, relatively speaking, the socioeconomic status ladder. Think about it really seriously. $65,000. That's a lot of money, right? It's a lot of money for anybody. Okay, so we're up $65,000 year over year. What about the number of units sold? Is anything selling? Right? That's the median sales price for those that did sell. But is there anything selling? 514 condos closed, concluded their sale in the month of March 2022. That's up. It's up 37.4% from the number that closed, 374 in February. We're up 37.4% from that number. And interestingly, the 514, with the exception of 3 months in 2021, that number is the highest monthly sales volume in condos since 2011. Now, we are down. We're down 14.8% from 603 in March of 2021. Remember, there were 3 months in 2021 that had higher sales volume. That 603 was the second highest sales volume ever. It just happened in March of last year. So we are very, very strong in terms of sales. What about units for sale? 308 condos available for sale at the end of March 2022. That's down 19.7% from the 381 that were available for sale at the end of February of 2022. New record low number of condos for sale. And we're down a staggering 56.4% from the 702 that were available for sale at the end of March last year. Condos are flying off the shelf. Right? I mean, they are just selling. The inventory is dropping. The sales are incredibly strong with record pricing. Now, of course, there are condos that come onto the market as new listings. And so how many new listings were there? Right? There were 566 new listings of condos in March of 2022, which is great. That's up. It's up 11.6% from the 507 that were listed at the end of February of 2022. And we think of that as being kind of seasonally appropriate because in spring we get more units coming into the market. But that number of new listings is actually down 4.1% from the new listings we had in March of last year. So this is actually not a help with inventory. We have an inventory crisis actually in the condo market. Now, there's something else I want to talk about, which is kind of interesting, and that is contracts that fail, right? I'm usually presenting you information about, hey, here's what happened in the market from the optimistic side of, right? Not meaning hyping the market, but the optimistic side of contracts that actually closed. This is stuff coming into the market. This is stuff leaving the market because it's sold, right? And we're getting really strong sales, and we're getting those really strong sales at record prices. But there are people who write contracts to purchase where the contract collapses. Something falls out of escrow, as the expression is said, right? So people write a contract, and a unit goes into a pending status. It goes under contract. It goes into escrow. All three of those are the same thing. From pending, the unit either sells and becomes a closed sale, or it drops out of contract. The contract collapses, falls out of escrow, whichever way you want to say that. If it falls out of escrow, it can either go back on market, go into the inventory pool, or it could disappear from the market. Someone says, I don't want to go through this again. I'm taking my house, my condo, in this instance, off the market. So that's a negative outcome going back on market, because it means that a contract has collapsed. Well, why do contracts collapse? They could collapse for a number of reasons. There could be an inspection that says these things are wrong with the property. The stove doesn't work, or the windows were installed backwards, or whatever the issues were. The inspection or due diligence is a contingency under a sales contract. And so the buyer has a process through which they can request repairs from the seller. But that's another negotiation, and the seller may say, no, I don't want to. It's a really strong housing market. If you don't want my condo the way it is, drop out and I'll go find someone else. What's a buyer to do? Well, there's things a buyer can do, right? There's ways to have approached that may actually be stronger or weaker. And if you're approaching it from a weakness perspective, you're more likely to fall out of contract. Well, so an inspection could induce back on markets. Appraisals that are coming in low could induce back on markets. There are other reasons, right? But those are sort of the two primary ones, and the appraisal issue is elevated right now for a number of reasons. But the inspection issue is also elevated right now for a number of reasons. Well, I bring this up because the back on market statistic itself is important. 36% of contracts written ended up falling out in March of 2022. So we had a lot of condos coming back into the market. Now, we still had 514 that closed, that actually went through the process and closed. But if we take that and divide it by the back on market statistic, we had 36% not closing and coming back into the market and going through the process again. Very elevated. And it suggests something about how you want to approach this market as a buyer and as a seller. And it suggests you really want to have someone who understands what they're doing, helping you. All right, so that's condos. Let's turn our attention now to townhomes. I'm Justin Miller with the Chong Miller Group. I produce these videos to put valuable real estate information into the public domain. If you find these videos to be interesting, helpful, or have usable content, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. And as they say in the YouTube universe, please smash the like button. That way I'll know to continue to produce videos like this. Thank you. And now back to our show. The townhome market is different, and we can see that immediately just by looking at the difference in price, right? If we think about median price as being statistically what it is, the actual middle of the market, they're exactly 50% below and 50% above the median price. So the median price on a condo was $230,000. The median price on a townhome, $323,000. So almost $100,000 higher. Townhomes, even though they're also multifamily, they are a distinct population of housing product, and we need to analyze them as a distinct population. Otherwise, we just end up talking about some kind of middle ground that doesn't really exist, and we're describing something that's not only ephemeral, but rather is misleading because we're trying to talk about two populations at the same time, saying they're all multifamily. Actually, they're condos and they're townhomes. So the median sales price on a townhome at the end of March of 2022, $323,000. And that's up. It's a second record of 2022, third month, second record. And that is up 4.9% from 308,000 in February of 2022. January of 2022 actually was down a little bit from December of 2021. That's why we have only two record high prices in 2022 so far, even though we're in the third month. We actually had mostly record high prices every month in 2021. So we still see a very strong trajectory. And in fact, year over year, we're up 28.7% for townhome pricing. We're up from March of 2021, $251,000. So that means we're up $72,000 median sales price year over year for townhomes resales in the Las Vegas Valley. And again, that compares to median wages in the Las Vegas Valley of $46,000. Now, some people will hear that and they'll sit back and they'll say, affordability, there's no affordability. It's becoming harder and harder to actually buy in Las Vegas. And that may or may not be true for a variety of reasons. And as interest rates go up, it becomes a little bit more challenging to be able to buy a property in Las Vegas. But we need to level set on that. We need to understand that there are people who can afford to buy properties in Las Vegas. And while some people may find themselves excluded from the marketplace because they can't afford it, and maybe there are solutions to that, maybe there are not solutions to that, we've not run out of people who are looking for these properties. We still have lots of demand. So how much demand do we have? Well, let's look at actually closed sales of townhomes. In March of 2022, 365 townhomes closed. The sales closed, they completed. That's up from 284, or up 29.4% from February of 2022. And there's only been 3 months of higher townhome sales in the history of the Las Vegas Valley. So we still have townhomes selling. They're selling at high rates. Relatively speaking, incredibly strong rates. Only 3 months higher number of townhomes sold in the Las Vegas Valley. Now, one of those months happened in March of 2021, when 366 townhomes sold. We're down, right? Remember, 2021, record volume for single-family houses and condos and townhomes. So one of those months that was stronger, one of those 3 months that was stronger than March of 2022 was March of 2021. We're down one townhome from that. So really, really strong demand for townhomes in the face of record pricing. What about townhomes for sale, right? we need to understand how many of these things actually exist that people could be buying. 222 townhomes for sale at the end of March of 2022. 365 sold in March, ended March with 222 for sale. That's down. It's down 9% from 244 townhomes for sale at the end of February. Right? Usually we expect to see some level of inventory building during the spring because more people are coming into the market. We're down 9%. Record low inventory for townhomes. We're down 41.7% from where we were at this time last year. At the end of March of 2021, we had 381 townhomes for sale. We're down 41.7%. And where we were last year led us into a series of record high prices that we haven't gotten out of, and our inventory is still lower than that by 41.7%. Well, we do get new townhomes in the market, fortunately, or new listings of townhomes in the market, fortunately, because we need them to be able to sell. How many new listings have come into the market? During March of 2022, we had 386 new to market. That's up, fortunately, it's up from 340 new townhomes into the market, or new listings of townhomes into the market, up 13.5% from February of 2022. But again, it's down. It's down from March of last year when we had 398 townhome listings enter into the market. We're down 3.0%. So we're not getting the alleviation of the inventory crisis that we've got in townhomes by getting new listings into the market at this point in time. So we expect to see seasonally increased numbers of for sale units in spring, as we also expect to see increased number of buyers looking as we go through spring. But buyers are showing up in front of sellers in every category in this market, in single family homes, in condos, and clearly also in townhomes. So what does that mean? It means we've got really strong demand that's causing pricing to go up, even with increasing sales. And we've got a real inventory crisis at the same time. Now, with condos, I talked about this back on market statistic, and I want to give it to you for townhomes as well. 38% of townhomes are coming back into the market. Again, that's a really elevated level of contracts that are failing. And if you're a seller, you want to make sure that your buyer's not failing out of contract. You want an agent who can actually help you protect yourself from contracts that are failing, because the failed contract does not help you. It delays you in every aspect of the reasons why you wanted to sell your townhome or your condo to begin with. And if you're a buyer, failed contracts don't help you. You competed against multiple offers to try to get into contract, and you succeeded. To have that contract then collapse, that doesn't help you at all. Now you've got to go and start all over again. So you want to make sure you've got people who are actually knowledgeable in how to represent you, whether you're a buyer or a seller. Really important. The back on market statistics are clear evidence that there are strong frictions, stronger than normal, existing in this market. You want to have someone, a professional on your side who really understands what's happening in this market to be able to help you. Now, there's one other point that I want to make, and that is when we're looking at condos in my condo and townhome market updates. At the bottom of the screen on the condo graphic, you'll notice that condos do not include the high-rise condos in Las Vegas. And I just want to talk for a few seconds, about why that's the case. So In Las Vegas, most condos exist as 2, 3, 4-story buildings or clusters of buildings. They exist in particular neighborhoods around the valley. That's how most of our condos exist. There is a category of condo which is in high-rises. It's not a category that coheres, that can be analyzed as like high-rise condos. Why? Right where I could do a third category of multifamily housing. Why can't it cohere? Because most of the buildings are pretty unique. So, for example, we have the Waldorf Astoria on the Strip. Bottom half is a hotel. The top half is condo, and it's not a condo hotel. It's actually a condominium complex development. But it's the most expensive condo building in the state of Nevada. Right across the street from it, we have a very architecturally interesting condo on the Strip, Vera Towers. It's the second most expensive building in all of Nevada. And then we have other buildings that aren't like those whatsoever. We have a couple others that are on the Strip, such as Sky, Allure. Those buildings are categorically different than those that exist at City Center. We have across the freeway from City Center, we have the Panorama Towers, including the Dean Martin. But those are on the other side of the freeway. They're not literally on the Strip, and consequently their prices look very different than do the ones in Waldorf and the ones in Vera. We can look at other high-rise buildings, the Signature buildings or the Trump building or the Palm Place and several others. They're actually what are referred to as condo hotels. They're distinctive because not only are they in particular locations, but those cannot be financed. They cannot be financed because they're condo hotels, meaning they're actually hotel developments in which you can buy a particular unit. And so they're not only not warrantable, you cannot find financing on condo hotel units. I guess you could go get a hard money loan at 8 or 9 or 10%, 11%. Effectively, they're not financeable. Whereas financing in other high rises may carry with it some challenges for various reasons, but they're financeable, right? And so these buildings are all sufficiently distinctive of each other that we cannot actually talk about a coherent high-rise condo market in Las Vegas. And if we've got things that are selling in Waldorf at $800, $900, $1,000 a foot, that's really different than things selling at $230 a foot on a condo in what are traditional condos around the Las Vegas Valley. And so it doesn't make any sense to try to pull them into the condo data set. And so that's why they're separate. And so they're separable, and why I leave them as separate. They're distinctive of condos, but they're also distinctive of themselves. We do actually a lot of business in the high-rise condos, both on the sell side and on the buy side. If you're interested in those, please let us know. We also do significant business in regular condos as well as in regular townhomes. And we can help you whether you're a buyer or a seller. But please feel free to reach out to us, ask us questions, see how we can help you so that you're positioned as best as possible to get into a contract, whether you're a buyer or a seller, and to get through that contract to achieve the enviable status of closed sale or closed purchase, because we can really help you with that. I am Justin Miller with the Chung Miller Group. We look forward to talking with you. We look forward to helping you. Thank you.